Hello, my name is Marina Dickson, and this is the Institute of Geoeconomics program on Geoeconomic Insights, where we take one story shaping today's international politics and draw out its implications. Today, I'm here with Jimbo, president of API, to discuss the so-called global swing states, countries that remain non-aligned even in the polarizing geopolitical climate of today. I'd like to start off by asking about the most recent trends. In the midst of the Russia-Ukraine war, it has become clear that many countries, a third of the world's population, according to the Economic Intelligence Unit, have opted not to take a stance on either side of the conflict. Even Singapore, who initially condemned Russia's invasion, abstained in their vote to remove Russia from the UN Human Rights Council. Have the dynamics of smaller states fundamentally shifted as we move away from US unipolarity?
Well, first of all, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been condemned globally. And the immediate aftermath of the breakout of the war, the UN General Assembly actually adopted overwhelmingly a resolution demanding Russia to end the military operation in Ukraine. Out of 193 member states in the UN, 141 countries have voted in favor of this resolution. So in this case, the world witnessed that the absolute majority took a stance that Russia must withdraw from Ukraine. But however, when it comes to the specific measures to be taken, we found a wider variety of responses among those member states. For example, the UN vote on removing Russia from the UN Human Rights Council was adopted, but with a smaller number of countries, which was 93, comparing to 941, that barely secured the majority because of the others, having abstention votes. And when it comes to the countries participating in the economic sanction against Russia, the sanction itself has been robust and comprehensive, but we count only 38 countries formally lined up for this sanction. So what do we interpret? How do we interpret this gradation, or so to say, of the world response? I would argue that the category of the countries who have put all things in a basket to counter Russia, those are including EU member states, the United States, Japan, Australia, Singapore, and Korea, share the strong sense of urgency of threats, either direct threats in Europe in case of how they try to deal with Russia, and also indirect threats in Asia that obviously having an implication for China in their mind. So that is the first category. And you can find a second category that is Russia and its friends. So like Belarus, Syria, and North Korea on the one hand, and also the China and countries under China's strong influence, who may not completely sympathize with Moscow, but maintain Russia-China strategic alignment even after the invasion. And I think I would like to argue there has been the remaining category that is something to be called as a global south, which is not taking either Russia or Ukraine, but maintaining their ambivalence on the moral judgment on the invasion. And in some cases, they try to continue to rely on the energy and also the weapon sales from Russia. So those are actually taking a quite vague stance on either countering Russia or try to support Russia. So those countries in my analysis, which is actually counted up to 133 countries listed in this category. And I think we really have to identify those are the nature of the divide as we see as of today.
Thank you. I like that you brought up the word ambivalence. I think that captures their perspective really well. I think we saw a different yet arguably parallel trend during the US-China Trade War, where countries, particularly small states in Asia, didn't want to be pulled into either side of the conflict or caught between two major powers. Do you think there are any lessons we can learn from that trade war in 2018? And how should it shape our perspective on the current US-China relationship, given the security concerns surrounding the Taiwan Strait?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think under the globalized world, private sectors and individuals tend to see the world market without borders and optimally seek best practices in the trade and investment. I think those are the nature of the world, especially in the early 2000s, how we can really expand the globalized market. Now, a US-China strategic competition comes in rather full scale, and there's less prospect of the freedom. And we actually try to see the squeeze choices that makes market players needs to make. So I think it is important to face that US-China competition is a reality, and that all players need to adjust itself. The governments, private sectors, and the individuals all need to redefine what can be the best mix of choices that they need to make. And sometimes company needs to make hard choices, such as like a semiconductor supply chain needs to be reviewed, and those has to be shared among those friendly nations, and do not try to incorporate the China into that supply chain. And that is the hard choices that those private sectors need to make. Or sometimes they need to make another choices, for example, like a withdrawing of the investments from China or Myanmar, or those kind of, the country who actually needs to face with its all human rights concerns inside those countries. So, but at the same time, we also should not forget that there's a need for inducing both the United States and China to pursue their competition based on the common rules that can be shared even with third parties. And that will make much better prospect and the transparency of the issues and the nature of the US-China competition. That would not go beyond that, out of control or escalate too far. So this is my basic belief that the United States, for that purposes, should be coming back to CPTPP, for example. And also, we should also encourage China to be part of the CPTPP negotiation. So we do have the privilege to constantly, I think, asking China to perform its own domestic reform. And that is, I think, what is needed, even under the US-China competition. And all the country needs to make a choice between them. But at the same time, those competition should be, I think, competed in the common framework.
And finally, to close, how can Japan close the gap between itself and some of these global swing states, particularly those in the region?
Well, I think Japan can play a unique role in bridging gap between these countries. First, Japan should be part of the G7 and maintain the strong United States and Japan ties. And that will be the baseline of Japan's diplomatic strength. But second, Japan needs to listen very carefully the voices of the global South that I mentioned, and understand why they are raising alternative voices. And I think that involves listening to ASEAN, India, Sri Lanka, for example, Middle East, Africa, and also the Latin America. And I believe that without engaging effectively to the global South countries, the world divide will not be amended.
Thank you. That is all for today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the next episode of Geoeconomic Insights. See you next time.